Hey guys, this will be video 2 for the how to restore a 69 Goldtop Les Paul. I think it's a 69, or at least it's spec'd out as a 69, but originally the client approached me with the fact that it was a 73, so I don't really know. I got to shoot straight with that. I'm not really sure, but I'll show you something that I did discover here based on some research. If you look at this pickup cavity, how there was a bar in the middle, and all of those the machine work that was there, it kind of looks like it could have been a 69, but I'm not sure. So neither here nor there. But nonetheless, I have done a ton of work to this guitar, but 100% off camera. Several different reasons. About 2.5, 3 weeks ago, I dropped my phone catastrophically. I've never dropped a phone that bad, so bad that the actual screen just blacked out. And it took me several days to get that under control, et cetera, et cetera. I won't start talking about that. But ever since then, the phone has been really screwy, and it's been difficult to get it to charge, and there's just been a whole lot of pain in the you know what with that. So I just left the phone off and got in the saddle and started working on 3 vintage guitars. And there's a part of me I almost want to apologize for the front end videos. I was like, oh yeah, I'll do a video basically every day about showing all the process. But I realized that when you're working on 3 vintage guitars, you got to be hyper focused on everything, because the deeper I got into the project, the more I began to realize, when it comes to like this Honduran mahogany, the flamed maple, you don't just buy this off the shelf, even from custom luthier shops. This is extremely rare wood, and the more I looked at it, the more I realized both of these projects. I realized I got zero room for error. Period. I cannot make one mistake, and I haven't. I haven't yet, and I have no intentions of making any mistakes because we're pretty close to the finish line on all 3 projects. So anyway, I won't start talking about that and timing and stuff, but it just kind of it hit me that, man, this is a huge responsibility to keep these 3 guitars under control and make it to the finish line without losing anything. And this one was an absolute bear to get the neck out of it. And it's funny, I'm always talking about how, oh yeah, man, I definitely like the idea of epoxying a neck in, because they sound incredible. But this neck had been put in with epoxy, and there was absolutely no way to salvage. I tried to steam it off, was drilling holes all through it and trying to steam it off. It would not release, and I did not want to risk, screwing up the body. So I just came in and started doing relief machine work. I cut off the tenon and just started working my way to the finish line, to the point to where I could just route it off. I had to route it off after I used a flush cut saw to saw it off or just relieve it from the body a little bit. But that was an absolute bear. And apparently, see, when you look at this real clear, if this was resorcinol, it would be like a chocolate brown, but it's crystal clear. So it looks like not only whoever did this neck rebuild epoxied it into the body, but they epoxied the fretboard down as well. And it was an absolute nightmare to get it apart. And the more, where I'm going is, I was trying to save the neck if possible, because it's a super, super wide neck, and it could have some future use because it's such an absolutely beautiful, beautiful piece of wood. But as I had mentioned earlier in the first video, not at the expense of losing the body or anything, because this has got a really funky, weird join right here. And this is not even the original headstock, because if it had to be in the original headstock, it would have had 2 tuner locations, but it just had this. Whenever they did this work, they went straight to the milk bottle Grovers, and I'm not so certain, Jerome, that I want to go with these. I watched a set of these sell on eBay the other night through Gibson Dependable, and they didn't bring nearly the value that I thought they were going to bring. And if we go with these, we're going to have to drill the really large, basically 3/8 inch hole. And I still have not drilled your headstock overlay yet because because I haven't had a chance to do a video. I still wanted to give you the opportunity to change this headstock 100% if you wanted to, and go the route that Chip had gone. However, let me reel myself in very quickly. I don't think this headstock on the bottom is going to work on yours, since we elected to go with a 1 3/4 inch nut. Jerome is a really big guy. He's like 6'6", and all the more reason to build that guitar original with the larger headstock. And because it looks far more attractive with the 1 3/4 inch nut width, and it's obviously intended to be a fairly large headstock profile, but I just wouldn't. Jerome had never asked me about this. I had just, when I started the job, I always kind of left that open so that I could present it to Chip and say, hey, if you want to, excuse me, to Jerome, this guitar, Jerome, that if I could present to Jerome, hey, if you want, I could go with the smaller 59 headstock profile. However, once we went the direction, and actually it was Jerome's idea. He's like, hey, what about because I talked to him on the phone. It's been about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, and I haven't spoken to anybody since then. But long story short, Jerome mentioned to me, I'm kind of thinking about going with like a 1 3/4 inch nut. And then I had no idea that Jerome was such a big guy. And we joked about it a little bit, where he joked about how, he is a bigger guy. And he asked me about going with a 1 3/4 inch nut. I was like, absolutely, man. If I was 6'6", I probably would be going with a 1 7/8 inch nut. And what was this on here? It was 1 7/8 inch. It was enormous. It was hilarious. But when I pulled it out of the case and played the guitar, it's got a very, very deep V. I played it for probably 5 or 10 minutes, never even thinking, oh God, this thing feels enormous. It's absurd. It's this, that, and the other. I wasn't really critiquing it, but it was amazing how, and I'm not a big guy, but I don't have any fat on my hands or a lot of muscle mass in my hands. So when I was playing it, it felt incredible. So all the more reason, don't think that you have to go with a smaller nut location just because they might have used a 1 11/16 or something like that. So we did just that. We went straight to the Olympics with 1 3/4 inch nut width, and we'll be able to maintain the same width down here. So all it did was just change the trapezoidal path where it's just less pronounced. And on Chip's guitar, we did go with the 59 profile, but the whole idea, I think one of the main reasons Chip went with me, but to do the restoration, is because I kept talking about how absolutely, man, we'll do everything we can to make your nut width up to 1 11/16 at a minimum. However, once I removed his fretboard, I discovered that, yeah, man, Chip, we could take your nut location all the way up to 1 23/32. And and the cool thing is, we're still there. I know for a fact we're not going to go under 1 11/16 on Chip's guitar, but there's a possibility that we'll start with 1 23/32 because it is binding. And then the cool thing about that binding, there's always a little bit of material there that you can shape off to roll it into I call it the lower. You got your fretboard and then your lower. So if you go with a sufficient binding here, the whole idea is once you're finishing the guitar, you're rolling all that in. And to give you an idea of how much wider a Chip's neck is, that's really bizarre. It's awesome. You can see it's a solid. It's over 1/16 of an inch wider than this one right here. And this would have been like a circa 80s Gibson Les Paul custom, and the fretboard that I looked up and bought off of eBay. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was really cool. Gave me a really good deal on it. So great for props. And then I'm kind of all over the map here, but reeling myself back in to Jerome's guitar. The main reason I wanted to do the video here, and we'll talk about this tenon pocket, all that jazz in a little while, but I wanted to present to Jerome the possibility. Well, I kind of already covered it. Uh, I do like the idea of reusing this overlay. It's really beautiful, and I thought it was some sort of fiberboard, but I did discover it is probably holly because it looks like, or either it's just discolored lacquer, but I'm fairly certain that is a true wood because I say that I kind of see a wood grain in it. I don't know why I'm questioning that now that I've really got it in the light. I'm about 99% certain that's true holly. And then even right there, it looks like it's divoted in a little bit. So say this. When I built Jerome's headstock, I meticulously, bar none, meticulously made certain that I could remove this overlay and it would transfer over perfectly. So if you want to go that route, Jerome, I think it would be pretty cool and it would keep it in check. But the only thing that kind of threw me a little bit of a curveball here was this dot. They wouldn't have had that dot in the the. I don't think they might have had it in 68, 69, and then they dropped it in the 70s because the more research I did related to this guitar, uh, honestly, the more confusing it got. There was such a myriad of variations that I realized very quickly I'm not going to make any more assumptions at all because I can't. And unfortunately, Chip's headstock didn't. I'm not so certain Chip's headstock was original enough that I could rely on using it as a gauge. Not that it mattered anyway. So I say all that to say this: if you want to go with this headstock overlay, since this neck was already pretty much epoxied in to the point where I couldn't steam it off, and I had to remove it the way I did. Now this could be rebuilt with a heel and all that stuff, but I'm not going to start talking about that with a different tenon and usable. But the fact that it's got that funky join right there, I say that to say this. One way to remove this and be 100% certain that it comes off without any issue is to, I'll go ahead and talk about this because I haven't done a video in so long. The way you could do it, you have a larger piece of poplar and then you would temporarily jet glue, like a masking tape, and jet glue this to that. Then you are able to run this down your table saw in a completely 100% controlled fashion. And even the poplar is kind of tall where you're able to keep a good grip on it. You're able to hold it over here on your right hand. And I say all that to say this. Let me see if I can find my little compass. Then what you're doing, you're making one clean cut across that, obviously behind. Don't try to get all the way up to the holly because the saw blade may travel a little bit. The whole idea about salvaging this headstock overlay would be 100% at the cost of this neck lower. It would be game over because you would have to saw back here and then the saw blade would literally come all the way back here so far that I probably would even have to I don't know. I probably would have to stop. Yeah, what I would do, I would have to stop the saw blade before I got into the truss rod, and then I would take the hand saw and then saw off the rest of it. But it would you would pretty much lose the neck, and I would not suggest doing that if this neck was beautiful and original and all that jazz. But if that were the case, we wouldn't be doing the job. So I say that to say this, of course. If you want this overlay, I can get it off. 100% certain, no one guaranteeing that we don't lose the overlay, but it would be at the expense of this neck. However, there's a strong possibility. The more I think about it now, I probably would just stop the saw blade back here and then do all this saw relief work up here by hand so that it would guarantee that it would salvage all this beautiful wood right here so that you could come in and do a scarf joint on a future build. But I'm not saying me, I'm just saying that's something that I have no idea who this would be of value to, but it would be someone that would have to realize that they've got literally days of work to bring it back, and it would be a scarf joint neck with a built up heel. I'm gonna stop talking about that because it's not really worth discussing in that realm, because what's even more weird, it's a 25.5 inch scale. So it's a funky situation to begin with, but this overlay more than likely is original, other than that funky little dot right there. That's a little confusing. So if you want to do some research on that, Jerome, or if you just want to let me know, yes, absolutely. Let's use that overlay. It's really cool. It's got a lot of character. It goes with the guitar. Or absolutely not. I'm cool with you rebuilding, and I'm already building other overlays. I'm actually building, I think, 4 or 5, because I got in this realm of where I was just doing the one for Eric's SG, and then chips, and then I did I think 2 more. I'm looking over; they're hanging in the spray booth where I've been spray coating lacquer atop them. But or if you want, we could go with one of my brand new overlays, and it would. This one's pretty rough right now. It still has a lot of finish work to be done to it, but that would give you an idea of what the logo would look like, and then the finish. Because, well, I say the finish. That's rough. That's just the rough. That hasn't even had the clear coat lacquer build up yet. Okay. Check the time. It was 16 minutes. And I'm just going to go with this video, even if it's just a bunch of off the top of my head rambling. It would appear to be rambling, but it's basically just kind of like catch up. But anyway, just let me know what you want to do with that, Jerome. Um, there's a part of me I struggle with. Oh gosh, I hate to start doing that and losing this neck, but I have to continue to remind myself there's nothing about this neck that is really of any value to anyone. It served its purpose. Um, the cat that did the work before, he taught me a lesson where I need to really think twice about how I glue my necks in. But as I've mentioned in past videos, if you epoxy them together, the tone is absolutely off the charts. And all of my guitars, my personal guitars, I epoxy the necks in. And but I typically do not epoxy the fretboard down. I glue it down with a Tite Bond. I'm going to get that worn out thing off the table, so I stopped using it as a sample, because that's the reason I bought this, so I can use it. But usually what I will do, I do like the idea of epoxying the necks in, even in a body like this. The tone is off the charts. If you're going to be replacing a neck lower, it's usually from a catastrophic headstock break that could not be repaired. So you're going to be pulling out your drill press and your Forstner bits, relieving all this material, and then routing it off the body, and then building another lower. That's how you would do it. So, as I had mentioned in the past, why should we build these things so they're real easy to take apart? Well, Gibson did not design them to be dropped and broken so they would be real easy to take apart. If that's the type of guitar someone wants, well, then they need to go the Fender route with the bolt-on neck. But so I say all that to say this: there's a part of me I really, really want to epoxy this neck in, and I have not. Obviously, that's Chip's guitar as well, but I am 100% cool with if either Jerome or Chip said, "Oh, absolutely not, man. Let's glue it in with Tite Bond and just make certain that it's a real sweet, nice, snug, tight fit." Then I'm okay with that. So, but the epoxy sounds incredible. And if you liked the way this guitar sounded before, Jerome, well, it's because it was epoxied in. And when I first played it, I remember thinking, as soon as I, first went into it, I remember thinking, my God, the sustain is off the charts with this thing, whatever it is, because I had no idea. But it's probably because it was epoxied in. It was all epoxied together. So we talked about the headstock overlay options. Could do new, and when I say new, obviously it's all hand built. I'm going to be hand building it, but I could definitely buff it with quad alt steel wool there on the very end where it would have a matte finish. It wouldn't necessarily have to be shiny. So, uh, and then epoxy the neck in. I kind of covered that a little bit. I got 4 points that I just want to make certain I cover here. And then, because Jerome and I haven't talked about this, but I think from the standpoint of historically accurate on this guitar, this was about as close to historically accurate as you could have gotten, and it is absolutely beautiful. And it's a shame it's the wrong scale because it would have been a beautiful fretboard to reuse and even use the you know the Les Paul trapezoid. I can't remember if they have it. I don't think they have it at the first, but they do have it at the third, the fifth, the seventh, the ninth, etc., etc. So even if it had the dot inlays, you could have come in across. Unless let's see if this would have covered right here. Oh, shows you how strong that pearl is. You wouldn't want to drop it on a concrete floor. Uh, might get away with it. Where like if you route it out, I'm not saying I'm not trying to use this, but if you were doing a project, you might get lucky if these two dots were in close enough, and just remove those two dots and route out for the trapezoid. But odds are, keep this in mind. Um, you could make certain that you chisel out some of this original wood and do a little bit of creative carpentry over here and make things disappear and then do your inlay like that. And that's, I probably would have proposed that if this had been a 24 3/4 inch scale, even if it was some sort of catastrophic issue that we were changing. I probably would have encouraged Jerome to let me reuse this fretboard because it's nice and super thick, and it did warp a little bit as I was taking it off, but it lays back down perfectly. And again, I got to get this thing off the table because the only reason I showed it is because I'm presenting to Jerome. If you wanted, now is the time. If you wanted to change this over to ebony, even with the trapezoid, uh, we could do that. I'm not saying I want to. I'm just letting Jerome know this is your guitar. I am emotionally disconnected from the project in that respect. So if you want to go with an ebony fretboard and the trapezoid inlays, well, that's pretty much exactly what it would look like as far as like because this is Jerome's trapezoidal, the trapezoid inlays. It would basically look like that right there. And is that out of character with this guitar? Well, kind of, yeah. Well, historically accurate, 100%. Yes, it would be a rosewood fretboard, and I have only have two left. That is my Bolivian rosewood. So anyway, you might look at that and go, "Damn, that's ugly." It's kind of bland and blasé. When I do all my shape work and finish work and oil work, etc., it's going to look virtually identical to that right there. So don't let it throw you if you're not familiar with what wood looks like in the raw. Well, if anything, that'll give you an idea right there how ugly it is when it's dry. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful to me. But if you want, Jerome, could go with a ebony fretboard, or could go with the Bolivian. Or I had even mentioned to you in the very early front end of the communications, Stuart McDonald also offers a Madagascar rosewood, and I have not used that yet, but I got to tell you, in the pictures, it's really, really beautiful. So if you wanted, we could go with the Stuart McDonald Madagascar rosewood, and I'll send you some pictures. Or either we could go with the Gabon ebony from Stuart McDonald, and it's the 12-inch radius. It's already a CNC cut frets. I'm not trying to get out and do my own work because I make fretboards all the time. I got the jig for it. It's no big deal. But if you prefer, I could just order it from Stuart McDonald. So say this. If we were going to order a fretboard from Stuart McDonald, they're virtually the same price. And it's about the same amount of time for me to do all the exacto cutting and inlay work for the mother of pearl. So it doesn't really make any difference to me whether I'm installing that in a Gabon ebony or in the rosewood. Okay. So it's your call, man. It's your guitar. We'll do whatever you want. So heel shape, and then so we're going to start talking about the body here. We already talked about I got epoxy the neck in, and I didn't even put a question mark in it, so that lets you know how much I really would like to epoxy it in, but only because I know Jerome is a mature player, and it's very unlikely that he's going to be falling down the stairs with his guitar or anything like that, or jumping off stage with it and all that jazz. So let's start talking about how I went about. Um, I had to rebuild this pocket a little bit from the previous build. It was fairly butchered up down in here, so I did have to epoxy in a new floor and clean all that up and verify all that jazz. And it was really awesome because I was able to use the uh, temporary tenon that I used from Chip's guitar when I was working on his, to use it as a gauge by which to guarantee that I got everything nice and true, because I didn't want to risk just epoxying the new or tight bond gluing in the new neck, into a sloppy floor. Excuse me, because if there was just ever so slightest bit of tilt in there, it could have screwed you up and you wouldn't have even known it. It might have just been really subtle. But the cool thing about this, I was able to get everything just really beautiful and really perfect. So I could glue this one in blindfolded and it would be incredible. But let me go ahead and talk about this so I don't forget. Right now, I've got this heel shaped, a little bit big, and actually 100% finished. So let me just show it. It's really beautiful, and I love the look of that. Again, this is no wider than any of the other guitars or anything that it would have had in it. It's the original size, but because it has this real wide flare, I wanted to make certain that I gave Jerome the option of going with a little bit heavier heel, and I'm going to show it in the body here in a minute, which this is really my favorite. It's really beautiful, and it's the one that I always, I can't pick, I don't have any fingernails, so I can't, let's see if I can pick that up. Yeah, I did. This is the one I always use when I'm doing my initial shape work. That's my favorite heel. But once I get it in the body, then I start asking myself, looks a little bit big. Now on Chips, I went ahead and took Chips down because Chips' original neck, this is virtually identical to what was on Chip's guitar. So I thought it was really wise to just go ahead and take it to that. So it's very much in keeping. But I just want to let you know, Jerome, if you prefer the smaller, and this is still not finished because I haven't rounded it over yet, but if you prefer, I can take this heel shape in even a little bit more and take off about another, not quite a 16th of an inch, but I could take off just a little bit more right here. But we don't want to lose this outside area right here. You don't want to come all the way in because you'd start pointing. But you want to maintain that. You always want to maintain that little bit of flat right. Well, 100% flat right there, and it feathers out up here, and it feathers out. Well, it doesn't really feather out down there. You always like to have just a little bit of flat right there and right there when it all comes together. And I seal the ends of these in case I forget with nitrocellulose lacquer. But if you want drum, I can take the heel back a little bit sweeter and lower profile. But let me do this first. Let me get this pencil line off of here because I want to show you how lucky I was with the what was I talking about? How lucky? How was I lucky? How was I lucky? Oh yeah, with the pickup. This is hilarious, but there was an enormous amount of wire left in the cavity because I was looking at this thing about, oh man, I need to really go in there and desolder that pickup and get it out of the way and do all this work. But I got to look snooping around in the control cavity. I realized there was this original lead in there, so I was able to take it back enough, and I'll show you exactly how I did it. So let's do just that. And that way I can flip the body around and show you how well it worked out for me. So what I did, okay, so that guaranteed that you kept your pickup nice and safe. And then, I'm sorry, that's not what I did. Oh man, now I got that tape on there. That stuff's gonna be a bear to get off. There's the mistake I was making. Well, actually, when I did it, I used this material right here, but let's just go ahead and use this because this is how I want to finish the guitar. Let me get my scissors. Because I do not want to get into his wiring harness. Not that it's a big deal, but you run the risk of there being some sort of potential wiring problems in the future, and then everyone's like, well, I don't know if I did it or if that was the way it always was, and then you're sitting there with a situation going, oh man, God, now I got to buy this guy a new pickup or something like that, or either wire a new pickup for him, or chase down a cricket that you might have not been responsible for. So just by leaving all that electronics intact, it guaranteed that cover my you know what. Okay, so with this right here, now what I did at this point, I would not do this on a vintage guitar, meaning like a 50s nitro cellulose lacquer that was real dry, real brittle, or anything like that. But the blue painter's tape is real ginger, and then doesn't leave any residue or anything like that. So, and the cool thing about this, when you're doing a job like this, you're not manhandling anything at all. You're being real cautious with everything that you're doing. And I was able to just push that wire completely up in the corner there. And the cool thing about having this tape in this corner, it guaranteed that if I did any sort of sanding, that no dust got down into that control area. So let me okay. All right, now I was able to do all of my work, all of my fit work, just everything, and be real cautious with the guitar. And if I flipped it over for some reason, which I didn't need any access from the backside, because if anything, all I was ever doing was standing it up on my other table to my left, which is really low. Let me make certain that's. And see, it's not going anywhere, but it also forces you to be kind of gentle with it, and for some reason that held better the last time. Anyway, okay, so there you have it. And then it allowed me to it allowed me to actually route off that old neck with all that in place, and I had everything covered with a towel. I won't start talking about that. It's kind of obvious what you have to do or should not do when you're doing work like that. But let's look at this heel, and so Jerome can make the determination of the heel shape. And we'll talk about fitment a little bit. Tell you what, let me do this. I want to get this table down to nothing. Let me stick to my original plan. See if I can figure out how to get this in the camera without dropping anything. This is hell. Let me get that out of the background. I was literally getting ready to epoxy this neck in and or glue it in with a tight bond, and I got there and thought, I need to do a video and just talk about the entire project. But what I'm showing you right now, because see, I still haven't finished the fit work. I've still got sanding to do on this side and on this side, because I want to get it to drop in a little bit better on this side over here. Now, I hope I don't even know if that's in the camera. I see the blue, so it should barely be in the camera, but I've still got fit work as far as getting the neck in. However, I just want to show that heel option to drum, and if you prefer, see, I basically would leave this area right here, but take off more material right here. And I'm not even looking at it. I have no idea what I'm drawing. I'm looking at it from a really strong, sharp angle. So, in other words, make it smaller. So if you want it smaller drum, let me know. I can shape it down. Definitely would like to do that before it is either glued in or epoxied in, because it's ready to glue in. And change gears and go into the fretboard work, because see, I don't have to do any binding work on the headstock or any route work on the headstock overlay or any of that jazz. And when I'm doing the fretboard for this guitar, and the same thing for Chips. Well, no, Chips is different. I'll just be replacing Chips is different, but I will be building a completely brand new fretboard for this guitar, and I will already have all the binding on it, all the mother of pearl in. I will not have the frets installed, but it will be ready to be glued in, and I always epoxy the necks, lowers in first, or glue them in with a tight bond, and then change gears and go to fretboard work, and then glue that down. Okay, so let me know what you think about that heel option. I was thinking about something different there. Just let me know what you want to do with the heel. But I know what I was going to look at it. I got it pretty close. Let me just look at it. If this were my guitar and I were wanting to cut it down, yeah, I probably would be taking off about 1/16 of an inch. But then not let it get too square. Well, actually not square. See, the modern Gibson had a tendency to get all of a sudden go over and then all of a sudden just do a straight shot back here. But the earlier guitars, or like the true hand-shaped ones, they were a lot more graceful in that elliptical compound radius curve right there, which to me is a really beautiful neck. And can't really show, well, I don't want to show that neck. Yeah, I'll have to. I got my glasses on top of that. I broke those glasses the other night. I don't want to break them again. I would show you this heel, but see, there's not a lot of it left because I sawed it off in order to get it off the guitar. But you can see how whoever made this neck, they knew the importance of having that really beautiful, graceful ellipse in their heel. So, It's beautiful. It's really pretty, and that's what was always on the guitar. So, but you can also, and I would say, don't let that spook you, because you'll look at that and go, "Oh my gosh, that's enormous." Yeah, we got to get all that mass off. Don't let it throw you, because I did cut some of this material off, and it really, when you take off like a 30-second of material off of a area like that, it looks like it's an eighth of an inch. Okay, just read between the lines. Okay, check the time. 40 minutes. I'm probably going to keep this a fairly short video, because I don't really want to start talking about any of the tin work and routing work and all that stuff, because that's just one of those things where you just have to read between the lines. Uh, all I can say, it was an enormous amount of work working with the neck that was epoxied in. I don't know why I did that. I'm just spooked that's going to let go. But that blue tape is really strong, but also very forgiving. But I did, like I said, well, I've already mentioned, I did clean that up, but I got it under control. So now that, well, I've already covered it. It's perfectly true, perfectly S4S. So, well, I say this. In the event Jerome wanted me to just glue this neck in with a tight bond, if it did get damaged again and the neck had to be removed, it would be very easy for them to come in and drill, you know, drill right here, or either drill straight down on those sides and then steam that neck off, and it would come off within like 20 or 30 minutes. But it would it would sound better with the epoxy. It's your call, Drum, and I'm not going to bring that up again. But the reason I wanted to rebuild all this really beautiful is so that if you wanted to, I could glue it in with tight bond, and it would sound really nice, sound really good, and be easy to service in the future. But if you want it to sound like it sounded before, you know, I say the epoxy is the route to take. Okay, so let me look at the table here. Oh well, I'll go ahead, and I forgot to. Well, it shouldn't be all that difficult to do. One thing that was really important before you started doing too much shape work is to, when I say shape work and fit, like shape and fit work, yeah, that's perfect. When, obviously from the very beginning, you're always working from the very original center line where you built the hole lower, started building the hole lower. And I'm surprised I haven't added the pencil line right there, but I've still got the mark right there. But when I did the initial fit work and all that jazz and started getting everything fit really beautiful, as soon as I felt like I was going in the direction of the finished guitar, you want to put your, maybe get like a small C-clamp or something like that, a little medallion on the back to protect your actual body. And is that in the camera? It should be in the camera. But the great thing about it is it just sitting in there comfortably, and I'm pushing this up into the body. And when I put this straight edge, and I didn't cheat, I didn't try to like look at where I would want it to go. I looked at the center line at the nut location, the center line at that location right there. I put my perfect straight edge on those two marks, and then I was honestly evaluating where was my neck fitment center line. And when I say the neck fitment center line, let's just go straight to the finish line and say the center of the truss rod. I want the center of the truss rod and the truss rod path to be perfectly in center up here, which it is, and I want it to be perfectly in center down here, which it is. And then if I'm really good at what I'm doing, just by sitting this in and just holding it where it would go if I glued it in with tight bond or epoxy, and just very minimal hold clamping, that when I put this straight edge up here, how close to the center line am I? And this is the first time I've ever done one where it happened the very first time. It's perfectly true and 100% spot on, dead center of the bridge, no shimming, nothing. So I was very excited about that. So this one's ready to glue in or epoxy in. So that felt really good, and it was exciting to know that okay, now I can really. And keep in mind, I've already shaped off about a 16th of an inch of that, but just looking at it here in my hands, um, it probably wouldn't hurt. I don't know why I drew that. It probably would not hurt to shape off a little bit more, and that's just my honest opinion. It looks a little bit fat, but I have to keep in mind. Jerome's such a big guy, and trust me, I've got this machined. It feels incredible as far as access for a Les Paul at the 16th fret location. You're gonna with if you're as big as you are, you're gonna have no problem getting your pinky all the way up to the 22nd fret location, with your thumb and or gripping in there. Okay, so I like the big heel. It's really beautiful, but we'll take it down if you want. So now that you've seen that, let's erase it. And because the last thing you'd want to do is start doing some sealer work, and then you seal that pencil marking in there. Okay. All right, so I'll end the video there. I appreciate you guys dropping in. Apologies that it's been so long for this guitar, but considering that from video 1, I basically was pulling it out of the case, and now video 2, where we actually have a neck that is pretty close to finish. The lower is pretty much close to finish and ready to glue in. And if you wanted to see some of or if you got questions about, well, how did you do this or how do you shape that, I will refer you to some past videos, even though I promised in video 1 that I would not do that. But I just realized when I was working on these 3 vintage projects, there was no way I was going to be able to each different guitar show you exactly how I did this or how I did that, or vice versa, because it takes about an hour just to get set up and clean up the table to do a video. And I realized very quickly I got to stay focused on doing the job and it being really beautiful, and then making certain that it's info for the client to be able to really sit there and either enjoy or either really take in from a project standpoint, and then them tell me, oh no, I don't like that idea, or I want to do this, or no, man, that's awesome. I love the heavier profile. It's still really beautiful and graceful, et cetera, et cetera. And but like if Jerome was kind of a shorter middle height guy with really stocky hands, and maybe was a really stocky guy, I would probably say let's go as thin as we can down here, because I noticed even some guys that are big, if they've got really muscular hands, they need a real small. They need a smaller neck. It's bizarre, but me at my size, I can handle that monster that I had on the table that Jerome was originally playing. So anyway, so this will be a very very cool project. 1 3/4 inch nut, either ebony or rosewood, which I'd probably recommend rosewood if you want to keep it in keeping with this guitar. But since it does have the P90s, I think the Les Paul Custom with the P90s had the ebony. I don't know. I shouldn't have brought that up. But the main reason I didn't want to bring it up, it doesn't matter because we got this thing on the operating table and it is a custom guitar. So I'll do whatever Jerome wants me to do. Okay. But I wouldn't recommend doing like the block inlays unless you wanted it. But if you were to go that route, I would have to order those. So anyway, it's your call. Just let me know, Jerome, and feel free to give me a call anytime. And you will have already received a text message from me letting you know that this video is going to be live in 30 minutes or an hour or so, and then we'll go from there. So looking at the table, nothing to talk about there. I think I mentioned these tuners enough. Let me just go ahead and cover this briefly in case I forgot. Yeah, that's the reason I have not drilled these locations yet because, see, on Chip's guitar, those are the smaller tuner holes. I think they're whatever, they're smaller. I think they're 23, 30 seconds or something like that. But if you wanted to go with these original, well, these would not be original, is where I'm going with this. So you had mentioned this very early in the build. You know, what was my opinion about should you go with the Cluson or something like that? If you want to know my opinion, if we go with the old overlay, we're going to need to go with a large, like a Shaler type, because it's such a large hole. And I've already verified that that even the small reproduction, the press-in ferrules, they would not conceal that. Now you can get the conversion bushing or ferrule, but I'm not 100% certain that it would cover this overlay. This is pretty important. I apologize for not bringing this up. I may have brought this up and just forgot that I talked about it. I don't think I talked about the bushings though, but you can see because of this large just that large washer, that face washer. It really leaves a nasty indention. But the cool thing about this being a larger heavy stock, larger headstock, I don't have a problem with the larger bushings at all. And obviously it's what would have been put on the guitars in the '70s, and it's very likely that these are from the '70s possibly. But nonetheless, and I know, Jerome, that you had already mentioned, yeah, I'm okay with staying with those because I'd said really good things about them. But if you want to go with the Cluson, the more vintage correct, now's definitely the time to do it because I would then be drilling the holes same as I drilled for Chip's headstock. Okay, but it's your call, your guitar. So let me know and feel free to call anytime, Jerome, and I'm in the shop and go from there. So let me get some of this stuff off the table. Try to get everything organized so I can do a screenshot and everything look pretty. And the next time you see this guitar, it'll have a nut glued in it. And I don't think there's anything to talk about there. So I appreciate you guys dropping in. And I will see you guys in the next video as soon as I get that laid out on the table. And all is well. Okay, thanks guys. I'll see you in the next video.